My FPL Game Week 2 team selection. Game Week 1 didn't go quite as well as I would have hoped, so we need to have a look at maybe how we can do things better over the next coming weeks. Of course, as it's Game Week 2, I only have one transfer available and have no money in the bank. There are a couple of transfers we're considering. We'll talk about some future plans, and captaincy feels like a big debate this week as well. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,025 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and we are so close to that 200,000 subscriber mark on the channel. Please, let's try and hit it before Game Week 2. Make sure you subscribed, and let's have a look at how my team got on in Game Week 1. I got 55 points, which gave me an overall rank of 4.2 million. It is definitely not the best start. I'm definitely not panicking though. Of course, I would like to have been higher, but Game Week 1 is the least important rank of the entire season, and it's basically just a Game Week rank, and we have Game Week ranks of 4 million all the time throughout the course of the season. Now, there are some players that I wish had done better, but I was also aware going into Game Week 1 that I did have some picks in my team that looked a little bit weaker than a few of the other picks that I could have gone with specifically for Game Week 1. So, for example, I went with double Aston Villa against Newcastle, I went with double Chelsea against Crystal Palace, and I was starting Anderson of Fulham away at Brighton, whereas some people had the likes of Diouf, they had double Spurs defence, they may have had Wirtz in there, and there was just a lot more West Ham in general against Sunderland, plus of course more Manchester City going up against Wolves. So I was aware that my team in Game Week 1 didn't look quite as strong as some other people, so to come out pretty level with a lot of those other teams, I'm not really against that. I don't mind it too much. To talk about a few things specifically, of course, Reinders was the highlight of my Game Week 1. Happy with 10 points from him. Mo Salah getting the late goal as my captain. Sanchez 8-pointer and Porro 6-pointer. Very happy with them. But overall, I do feel pretty happy with the way that my squad is lining up. I still like the looks of Rodgers. I still like the look at Watkins. Let's see how the likes of Palmer and Bruno line up in terms of their positioning over the next couple of games. I would say Palmer, Bruno, and João Pedro are the three players I'm most concerned with. I do expect João Pedro, he basically did what we expected him to in Game Week 1, apart from maybe getting some more chances. The minutes were kind of as expected. Bruno played a little bit deeper than I thought he would going into the start of the season. I thought he would get more chances to be further up the pitch. And Palmer played too much out on that left-hand side. I've spoken about it a lot, and it is impacting my captaincy decision in Game Week 2 as well. But overall, it's not the worst start. Let's hope things can get better from Game Week 2 onwards. Now, just before we have a look at my actual team selection, let's have a look at my lineup for Club. Club is a football manager game. We get to build your club, and it's a cross between Ultimate Team and FPL. Every few hours, you get given a pack, and if you like the player you pack, you can add them into your team. So I have a pack. I can click Meet Now. Let's have a look at who we're going to get in this one. So Core, can it be anyone? Oh, Rare, so we're getting a little bit of a better player. Elite. Defender, who is this going to be? Arsenal at home to Leeds, please be one of their starting. Ben White. Now, he actually wasn't pictured in Arsenal training today, so I'm going to decide later because I might need an update on him in terms of availability. Now, this is how my team is lining up at the moment. I am massively over budget. If you haven't signed up already, if you sign up later, you still get matched against people who maybe have played the game for a similar amount of time to you, so you don't need to worry about joining later and gets matched against someone with a really good team. The league code is there. You also have the league code and the link to download the app in the description as well. I am over budget with my team that you can see at the top because I've got Odegaard, Reinders and Fernandes. I've all packed this week. So I do need to start letting a few players go. But of course, the big talking point in FPL this week is Reinders. So make sure you're joining the league. There's over 1,000 of you already in that league going into Game Week 2. Thank you all so much for the support and all the messages saying that you're enjoying it, that you're packing good players. If you aren't in it yet or you're already playing the game, make sure to download and make sure to get into my league. So going into my lineup, we are sticking with Sanchez in goal. I was quite impressed with Chelsea in Game Week 1 defensively, and we've got Dubravka on the bench. And part of the reason that I've got Dubravka on the bench is I actually currently plan on starting a Burnley defender in a Stev, and I don't really want to have a double up on Burnley. Sanchez, of course, got a save point. He also got a late bonus point as well. So I've been quite pleased with him as my Game Week 1 pick. And I think I plan on just playing him every week. Dubravka might be useful when I come to play my bench boost, but they didn't look very good defensively in Game Week 1 against Spurs. So I definitely don't want a double up. And I have gone with a Stev in my defence alongside Pedro Porro and Williams of Nottingham Forest. Now, part of the reason I've gone with Esteve, there is this clip going round that Lloyd Canfield asked Esteve at the award ceremony this week. And basically, it's him talking about, well, being asked about FPL and if he knows about it. So I'm just going to play that now for you to listen to.
Apparently, yeah, I've received some message about this, but I didn't know exactly what is the game.
So you'll get points.
Yeah, apparently you get points when you do something good in the pitch, no?
Yeah, so
okay.
Are you going to get a lot of points this season?
I will try to do my best, but I don't I can say, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But I will do my best.
So thank you very much to Lloyd for letting me use this clip. If you want to follow him on Twitter, you can. Again, lots of useful stuff and hopefully some more FPL questions to players as time goes on. But I can't not love that as a clip when players start to engage in the game. But outside of that, I do have a bit of a benching headache for all of my defenders. I've got 5 defenders who realistically I could play this week because the 2 I've got on my bench is Agbadou of Wolves going up against Bournemouth and Anderson of Fulham going at home to Manchester United. So both of those 2 on my bench are actually predicted to do quite well, particularly in terms of defensive contributions. Anderson at home to Man United feels like a perfect example of you should just play them because he's good for defensive contributions and has a decent enough fixture at home, and he tends to do quite well there. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up benching both Agbadou and Anderson of Fulham and they both hit defensive contributions and outscore a couple of my starting defenders. And actually, when you start to have a look at the Fantasy Football Scout predicted points on their members area, Williams and Porro are actually predicted to be my lowest scoring defenders, and it says I should start both Anderson and Agbadou. So there is part of me that thinks this is a blatantly obvious example of defensive contributions as picks in our team and whether we should be focusing more on that rather than picking from the teams that maybe have the attacking threat that Williams and Porro have in their starting lineup. So I haven't fully decided which of my defenders I'm going to go with this week, and that feels like a decision which might end up going to the deadline. But when the game updated, I put Porro, Esteve and Williams in and dropped Anderson and Agbadou, and that is what I've stuck with all the way up until recording this video. So unless something dramatically changes or I have a change in thinking, this is where I'm at the moment. But I do look at Anderson and Agbadou and think, I picked you for defensive contributions and you've got a decent enough fixture for that. Like we saw Van Dijk pick up great defensive contributions against Bournemouth last week. We saw Saliba pick up great defensive contributions against Man United last week. So could Agbadou and Anderson do that? And actually Williams away at Palace, like what are the clean sheet odds like there? Of course, Palace do play in Europe. If Eze leaves before the game, does that impact that? Pedro Porro away at Manchester City, I do not expect a clean sheet there, but I do expect them to play a back 5, so he'll probably be a wing back. He's all right for defensive contributions when he plays there. He is getting far forward and on set pieces when they play a back 5, and Esteve has by far the easiest fixture at home to Sunderland. I could start any of these 5, it feels like. So please let me know your suggestions in the comments of which you'd go for. At the moment, I'm going Porro, Esteve and Williams, but Anderson and Agbadou, there's just that lurking feeling in my mind about their defensive contribution ability. And then when we move up the pitch, Salah, Palmer, Fernandes, Reinders and Morgan Rogers are all starting for me again in here. The late switch for me to do Williams in for Murillo and Reinders in for Dewsbury Hall has been a massive returner of points already. And also it's just been a big stress reliever for me that I don't need to be worrying about finding a route to go and buy Reinders into my team. And I don't need to be forcing a transfer this week to go and do it. For example, downgrading Rodgers or just losing value if I'm not buying Reinders. So not only the points in game week 1 are helpful, but it is just much easier for me to roll a transfer this week. So Reinders I'm really happy with. Salah I'm still happy with. The other 3 midfielders I'm keeping my eye on, but I still think they're good picks. Palmer is the one I said at the beginning of the video that I am most concerned about, because if he continues to play in that left 10 position out on that left-hand side for Chelsea with Enzo Fernandez and Neto or Esteval on the other side of the pitch, he's just not nearly as effective. And him playing in that position was part of the reason he blanked so many times at the end of last season. In the Club World Cup, he started playing back on that right-hand side, and that is why he was so good. And as a Chelsea fan, taking even out the fact that he's in my FPL team, as a Chelsea fan, he needs to be back on that right-hand side. And I really, really hope that Maresca realises that sooner rather than later to start unlocking Palmer's potential again, because he needs to be over there for him to be as effective as we know he can be. So I do plan on keeping Palmer this week. giving him West Ham and hoping Maresca figures it out soon. But if he doesn't, he will be out of my team because I'm not paying 10.5 million for Cole Palmer playing on the left-hand side of the pitch. Bruno Fernandes played quite deep against Arsenal. Let's give him Fulham and Burnley and see if he plays as deep in both of those games, because if he does, someone like a Cunha, someone like a Brian Mbeumo might be a better option in that Man United team. And I like Rodgers. Interestingly, I didn't like Rodgers last year at his price, but now he's in my Game Week 1 team. But the Villa fixtures I can put up on screen here, as I spoke about in my transfer targets video, they have the best fixtures over the next 6 weeks when you ranked by overall difficulty. And they play a Brentford side who just shipped 3 in Game Week 1. So I am going to stick with him. And just like I'm going to stick with both of my forwards. So just like I plan on giving Palmer an extra week with the fixture against West Ham, and I plan on giving Rodgers an extra week with his fixture against Brentford, João Pedro and Watkins are going to stay in my team for pretty much exactly the same reasons. If a couple of those end up blanking in Game Week 1 and in Game Week 2 again, then I'll have to start to think about making some transfers. And there is a lot of talk about Erling Haaland. I'm, of course, not going to do it this week because it would require a -4 for my team. So that would be something like Cole Palmer down to Anderson of Forest and Watkins up to Haaland. And I don't think that's better for my team this week, especially for a -4. Now, when you start to include that Haaland is probably a slightly better captaincy option than I have available in my team, then maybe it might even be if João Pedro blanks again and let's say Bruno does, that I might do Palmer, Bruno, João Pedro and try and squeeze Haaland in and 2 other midfielders like a Anderson and like a Semenyo as an example. So there are a few routes to get Haaland. I'm not going to do it this week because of the fixture that Villa have and because of the fixture Chelsea have, but I am keeping a close eye on Haaland and on a route to him and how those sort of mid-price options in the likes of Bruno, Wirtz as well, the likes of Watkins, the likes of Gyökeres, Palmer are starting to perform. The other one is Arsenal. It sounds like Kai Havertz is going to be out for a few weeks, which is a boost to Gyökeres' minutes. And we've also had it reported that Gyökeres might be taking penalties. That is, of course, a slight knock to Saka, although Saka didn't score that many penalties anyway. That Palmer to Saka is a potential transfer. This week, I don't really want to force it. Watkins to Gyökeres is also something I'm considering. I just want an extra week of information to see how Arsenal look. Leeds looked quite good on Monday night, but also how does Watkins look? How does Palmer look? Because after Game Week 2, the Arsenal fixtures turned pretty dreadful for the 4 weeks after that. But the Chelsea fixtures and the Villa fixtures look nice. So although I'd like Saka and although I'd like Watkins and although buying an Arsenal defender would be a good solution for my team this week, I don't like their fixtures for the 4 games after that enough to use my first transfer to try and squeeze out players that I still think are good picks. So the plan for me is to roll my transfer this week. In terms of captaincy, I thought I would captain Cole Palmer going into this week away at West Ham, but I've just got too much concern that I'll see the lineup and I'll see him playing out on that left-hand side against a back 5 again, just like he did in Game Week 1, and he'll really struggle to get involved and he'll really struggle to create chances. Now, if I get the lineup and I see the team that he's playing out on that right wing after the deadline, I'll be disappointed that I didn't captain him, but I don't think I want to take that risk. That leaves Watkins and it leaves Mo Salah. Watkins I really like, but Villa did struggle with a little bit of creativity. They don't have as many of those players in there. Now, I do expect Daniel Marlin to start in Game Week 2, probably at the expense of one of those defensive midfielders in Kamara or Onana, and drop Tielemans back and create a little bit more going forward. And if that happens, I do think Watkins and Rodgers are still good picks and they should get opportunities against Brentford. But again, I think Mo Salah is the most reliable option for me. It's also the Monday night captain. We know how much we love a Monday night captain in FPL. You also have that extra little bit of hope at the end of the game week that it might go well. I am aware that Newcastle were fantastic in Game Week 1 in nullifying everything that Aston Villa created. But I do think at the moment that Salah has my armband and Palmer currently has the vice, but it could be Ollie Watkins, but it could be any of those. But I do think it's most likely I just go with Mo Salah again because I back that Liverpool attack more than I back the Chelsea attack and maybe the Villa attack at the moment based off what I've seen. And although, Newcastle are going to be firing and wanting to prove a point against Liverpool because of the whole Alexander Isak saga, it feels like the frustration from the Newcastle fans has turned from being against Liverpool to being fully just against Isak at the moment. So maybe the game won't be quite as hostile as we could have expected it to be. But I do expect Liverpool to win that game. I do expect them to create chances and Salah is always on the end of them. and he's just Mr. Reliable in FPL. And it might be boring, but I am currently planning on captaining Mo Salah and rolling my transfer, getting an extra week of information, because 1 week of information just really isn't enough. And then I'll have 2 transfers, 2 weeks of information. I might roll again into the international break and have 3 weeks of information, 3 free transfers, and then I can officially go from there. The plan is to roll my transfer unless anything crazy happens in the press conference. Captain Salah, I just have that benching headache in terms of my defense. So let me know in the comments who you'd start out of my 5 defenders. Which 2 would you bench? And actually, would you start Dubravka over Sanchez? Although I think you'd mostly agree with that. So which defender would you start? Please help me out. Please let me know. Of course, Friday morning, we will have the complete guide video where we cover everything for Game Week 2. So if you've got anything that hasn't been covered in my transfer plans, wildcard draft, free hit draft, transfer targets videos, or this video, then drop it all in the comment section down below and I'll do my best to answer and cover all of that in the complete guide video on Friday morning. A reminder, it is a Friday evening deadline, so don't forget that one. Thank you all for watching. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.